Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365. Back for another full week of content. Today's show brought to you by BetUS. Thanks to BetUS for being here. Johnny Mac, good Monday morning to you, sir. How you doing on this Monday?
Doing well. Yeah, a little bit of a shift in the schedule from the Eagles. They originally were going to practice today and have a walkthrough tomorrow. Just flipped it. So walkthrough today, practice tomorrow. 3 consecutive practices. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in advance of the final preseason game. And then we're finally get preseason football behind us. And we can look forward to September 6th.
Johnny Mac, right around the corner. Good stuff there. I want to welcome everybody in this morning to our start of our fresh week of shows. A little programming update, as John just pointed out. Eagles shifted the schedule, so we will have a few days here in the middle of the week where we will be doing a nightcap edition of Birds 365. So for those listening after the show today, so for those listening on the podcast, look for the show later in the day, probably 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Right, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, final 3 practices of training camp, the training camp portion of the summer, which is the best portion because that's the practices we can see the whole thing. Can't video it, but we can watch it.
We can see the whole thing. So good stuff there. So we'll do that later in the week. And then obviously, as John also pointed out, the last preseason game coming up this week. So almost through that period of the summer. It's been a good one. Offenses look good. Defense, the last couple of days, Johnny Mac has kind of, made their mark a little bit, which is good to see. Finally, John, let's get into a little bit of the depth chart. I know we're a week and a day. So next Tuesday, we'll get that initial 53-man roster. But where are we on our position groups? We'll start with the right guard battle. One of the most prominent ones. Mekhi Becton suffered an injury yesterday. Don't know how serious that is, but where are we just updating the depth chart battle as a whole on the right guard position?
Yeah, banged up. It looks like Eagles are going to dodge a bullet with Mekhi. Jeff McMullen reported yesterday it wasn't serious, probably got in contact with his agent. I'm hearing the same thing today. So at least from the standpoint of long term, it doesn't look like it's going to be an issue. And that's a positive. So he's going to be the starting right guard. And that competition with Tyler Steen, never really developed because of the injury to Tyler Steen. It was day 3 or day 4 of practice and I think people forget he had taken every first team rep until he got hurt. Hurt his ankle, missed 8 days, came back, still seemed to be a little bit ginger on it, and got hurt again. And now he's out again. So, injuries kind of took care of that. But it was evident, as soon as Mekhi got in there that Jeff Stoutland's enamored with the thought of it. So we'll see how it shakes out because, I don't think obviously he's got a ton of talent, but changing positions, he's a natural tackle, leverage, his size, not necessarily best suited inside. So we'll see how it works out. But that it became clear that that's the way the Eagles wanted to go, and that's the way they're going to go as long as he's healthy.
Good stuff there. But overall, Mekhi Becton, leader in the clubhouse, assuming health. So we'll see how that position.
I'm calling that race, actually. I wouldn't even say leader in the clubhouse. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be there.
Okay, there you go. Good stuff there. So Mekhi Becton has, in Johnny Mac's eyes, has won the right guard position, assuming he's healthy as always. John, let's go to that next one. We'll stay in the offense and we'll go wide receiver 3. I think that's the other big one, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball. I don't believe that race has been called. Maybe you can inform me that it has. Where are you on that position? Where's the depth chart? Where are the leaders in the clubhouse for wide receiver 3?
I think it still might be outside the organization. So I think that is the spot that the Eagles are most likely to go outside the organization, whether it's just picking up somebody after some teams with more depth at the position release somebody at the cut down to 53, which is a week from tomorrow, or trade, maybe one of those added young cornerbacks at the back end of the roster, you're going to have difficulty keeping. Howie's a little bit famous for those August trades, player for player. The biggest one would be CJ, and that happened at the cut down. So it can lag on. But that wasn't player for player, but I just meant August trade. But the standpoint of potentially looking outside, and I've always thought it's more about the backup to AJ and Devontae outside than the wide receiver 3 position. So I think a lot of people don't understand that part of it. I think they're fine piecemealing it. The wide receiver 3 position. If you need a slot guy, you can use Britton Covey. If you need a red zone guy, you can use Johnny Wilson, who's currently out with a concussion. Paris Campbell's back from the groin, so he's back in the mix. If you need that, somebody with some jiggle yards after catch, so they can go a bunch of different ways. And remember, it's a very low traffic position in this offense, so you're not getting a ton of work. So that particular 11, I think everybody's hyper focused on 11 personnel. Who's the third receiver on the field? I don't think that's as important as if Devontae or AJ get a sprained ankle, who's coming in to play 70 snaps for them?
Yeah, and how do you save the season, basically?
Yeah. That's what I think the Eagles want to find somewhere outside the organization, most likely.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So we'll see what they end up doing there. Good stuff. I like Britton Covey, as you pointed out him. He would be a good slot. Obviously not a good outside guy, but speaking of the wide receiver 3 exclusively, Britton Covey is a good option there. But as Slager points out in the chat, crash test Covey. It's a tough swing for him. He's a small guy. So we'll see what they end up doing there. Johnny Mac, let's keep moving on that offense. I'm gonna stay on the offense and go tight end 2. Has that race been called? Is that Grant?
Oh yeah, that's over. That's over. That never was a race.
Coming into the offseason before we saw training camp, we thought maybe CJ Uzomah would be the guy.
No, I think I'm not saying from our perspective. I'm saying from the Eagles, it was never a race. Okay. It's become clear. Everybody thought it was going to be a competition. I mean, it's been Grant Calcaterra from day one. It's very similar to last year at safety. We all saw the rotating. We also, who's going to start at safety? And Reed Blankenship showed up day one, never left the field, took every first team rep, and everybody else next to him rotated. A little bit different, not a starter with Grant Calcaterra, but we thought we were going to see this competition, not only with CJ Uzomah, Albert Okwuegbunam, and it's been Grant's from day one, and he's going to be the tight end 2. And I've called that race as well. The AP's called that race. He's the tight end 2. He's back. He had a little bit of a shoulder. He's back. Farba. You're Super Troopers fan? I just wrote about this.
I'm not. I saw your tweet, though. I didn't know exactly the reference, but
yeah. George Kittle at Tight End University dubbed him. He's got the mustache, so everyone loves it.
Okay. Okay.
For the Super Trooper fans, they will. I
figured it had something to do with the stash. That was my assumption, but I wasn't sure. So happy to have the clarity on that. I'm going to welcome everybody in. We're about to get to the defense and get the update on the depth chart on the defensive side of the ball. Appreciate all of our viewers this morning. Don't forget to hit that like button, guys. I want to get to at least 150 likes during the live show. If we could do that, the viewership has been great. The people have been great. So thanks, Crowley, Mike, Eduardo, Daz, Quan, Bob Brown's in here, Demarius Smith, Mike Fittery, Daz, our resident N'Kobe Dean supporter. Love it, Daz. Appreciate you being here, brother. Slager, Cali, baby, rest of Press. Anybody I missed, Twiz the Jigga. I didn't mean to miss you, but I appreciate you being here. So hit that like button. We appreciate it. John, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. I think the first real position battle there obviously comes at the linebacker. I think the defensive front is pretty shored up. You could maybe argue backup DT, but let's start with the linebacker position. How do you think that depth chart is sitting right now? That's the one with probably the most amount of fluctuation. Where are you in the linebacker? Where is the team on the linebacker position right now?
Yeah, I know where I am. I wish I knew where the team was. I can't imagine that they're not where I am. You know, Vic said earlier in the summer, it will become obvious. Well, it has become obvious except that the Eagles won't pull the trigger. Jakobi Dean should be a starting linebacker, and honestly, he should be the Mike linebacker. Now they haven't made that shift in practice yet. Why? I don't know why. My new speculation is I mentioned there's 3 more training camp practices. Those are the final 3 practices where reporters can watch the whole thing. This team is super excited about competitive advantage and super, I mean, to the point of CIA level subterfuge. My assumption is when we're kicked out after Thursday and we're not allowed to see team drills, I think that's when they make the shift. That's what I'm guessing. If he's not on the field, I mean, you can't call this a meritocracy. I mean, you know, and always the NFL claims to be a meritocracy. In a lot of instances, it isn't. But
I don't see why it wouldn't be, especially in this instance. It's not like they have significant capital in any of the other people.
Well, it's funny from the standpoint of, you know, last year the Eagles defaulted Jakobi Dean. He was their whole foundational plan at linebacker.
Right.
And obviously it didn't work out because of the injuries. And he wasn't, to be fair, he wasn't playing great even when he was out there early in the season. He never practiced like this when he was the foundational plan at the position. And now he looks like we all thought he was going to look coming out of Georgia when everybody thought they got the biggest steal in the history of mankind as a first rounder falling to the 3rd round because of some injury concerns and some durability concerns and some size concerns as well. He's playing like that guy, and now he's not the starter. It's so backward. It's just weird. It's one of the weirdest things. Ultimately, I can't believe he's not going to be out there because he's been that much better than everybody else, which I didn't expect to see, to be honest. I thought he'd be a little bit better, but he is lapping people. I mean, so he to me is the starting middle linebacker and the 3-down linebacker on this team. We'll see if the Eagles get there, but you know, Vic does what he wants to do.
And Devin White hasn't got off the field, John. I mean, if Devin White's played the mic and you think Jakobi Dean would be best at middle linebacker, would they move Devin White over? Would Jakobi replace Devin? Like, how would that?
I mean,
how do you see that
I
playing
think
out?
ultimately it comes down to both of them being on the field at the same time. And, you know, the positions, Vic will tell you they're interchangeable anyway. And they are from the standpoint of formationally. But the only thing different would be the green dot. And Vic would also tell you it's not that big of a deal. Can he repeat it? So, you know, they should both be on the field together. I would have Jakobi as the mic simply because in my head, he's going to be on the field every down. And by the way, even as this rotational thing, recently he's been the dime linebacker, so he's been the only linebacker on the field. Recently, he's been in the red zone with Zach Bond. It hasn't been Devin White in the red zone. So to me, it's trending towards him being the true 3-down linebacker. And if that's the case, why wouldn't you want the green dot on him? Then you don't have to shift. You know, if your original green dot comes off, you might have to give it to Reed. You might have to give it to Jakobi. You might have to switch. You know, if the guy's going to be on the field, why not just keep it with him? But yeah, it's, you know, Vic's an interesting guy. You know, I said I'm starting my 3 favorite Vic Fangioisms from each press conference. I put up my top 3
I
this
saw
morning.
your top 3 on Twitter. They were great. Yeah.
Yeah, the downstairs people. to
What was number
describe.
one again? I saw number one. I think
Number one was a good practice. He was on the patch joint practice, a good practice with a good amount of reps, which is rare for us. Which, by the way, I should clarify because this is X and everybody can look at it
Yeah.
at JF McMullen, Twitter, and people. He was talking about the rep amounts, not that the Eagles have good practices. He was talking about the reps with a good amount of reps, which is rare for us, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and that third one, as Yale points out, 7-on-7 isn't football.
Well,
which is,
it isn't, by the way.
I know.
It isn't.
And you, John, you've said that from the jump.
Yeah.
You've said that from the jump. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good stuff there from the linebackers. We'll see how that shakes out. I like Trotter Jr. Dean, I'm taking John's word that Dean has looked a lot better. He did look better in those 2 preseason games. So we'll see what they end up doing there. John, let's go to that back end of the roster, or the back end of the defense there, to the cornerback room. I don't know how this is going to shake out. You think it's going to be Quinyon. I know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Where do you think the team is on the cornerback position, and who might be your starters come September 6th?
Yeah, I know. Number one on those Vic Fangio-isms from Sunday was the downstairs people, as I said, which was a description of those sort of putting together Cooper DeJean's pitch count currently on his way back, which is currently
12, right? It was 12.
Yeah, 12. So he's allowed to be in there for 12 team reps. So a lot of it is how quickly you can ramp him up. You still got a lot of time. I mean, it's why I thought people were jumping off buildings because he was out at the start with the hamstring. It's August 19th. You got plenty of time to ramp him up. If, part of it is he's got the assumption that any rookie is going to be awesome right away is probably a poor one, but there's nothing about Cooper DeJean that makes you think he can't do it. So if they can ramp him up, I think it's simple. I think he plays in the slot, and it's Quinyon Mitchell opposite Slay. If he's not ready to go for September 6th, that's where it becomes more difficult. I think in the rare instances, and it'll be very rare considering the opponents, Green Bay, that there will only be 2 cornerbacks on the field. That would be Mitchell and Slay. In those rare occurrences, when there's a slot needed, then you're probably moving Quinyon Mitchell in the slots into the slot from outside, and then you're rotating in Isaiah Rodgers, still the leader, but I do think Keely Ringo is closing the gap in recent days.
That's good to hear because Keely not fell off, but Keely dropped back a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think Nick says there's an ebb and flow, and I think, Keely had a good ebb early in camp and then fell back, and then I think Isaiah had a good one, and then he kind of fell back in recent days. So I think that's still a competition. I would still say Rodgers slightly in the lead, but ultimately, and Vic said it again, second straight time, in a perfect world, Quinyon Mitchell would just be playing outside. So that's where he wants to go. But he wants to get his best 3 on the field for Green Bay.
And you think Cooper DeJean has a shot at that slot?
I do. Plenty of time.
Do you think there's any problems with the idea that you're going to have 2 rookies out there out of 3 guys that might hinder
not a problem to me? I mean,
it's not either for me, but there are a group of people where you're going to go into the season with 2 rookies.
Well, and I guarantee you, Vic doesn't give a flying what about them.
Right. I mean, especially if there is a Band-Aid, right? Just rip that thing off. Yeah. The quicker the better, I think. But
he doesn't give a flying what about his bosses in the building. He's going to do what he thinks is best.
Yeah, Vic has reached the full grandpa phase. If for anybody that had a grandpa and that hung out with and they reached that age where they completely lost their filter. Vic is that in football terms.
It's and I have no problem with that. I love it, by the way. It didn't even make my top 3, but because there's so many of them. But we were all wondering, there were so many blitzes on Saturday. we were all wondering, and it was a yellow practice. It wasn't a green practice. So we're all kind of wondering if that was partially to help the offense, because, the offense wants to work on picking up the blitz. Everybody knows what's coming from an offensive perspective when the season starts. They're going to blitz the crap out of the Eagles until they prove they can handle it. And so, from our standpoint, we're all wondering, well, maybe Vic's trying to help the offense. And first question, and his answer was, there was no consideration for the offense, which just missed my top three. No consideration.
Which is great. He's like, I got enough here on my plate with the defense. I could care less what the offense needs me to do, which is great stuff from Vic Fangio. John, good breakdown. I don't think there's any depth chart questions on safety, right? I mean, it's going to be Gardner.
There's plenty of backup safety, and in fact, that's the most uncertain. No, starters are locked in. CJ is back. He was back at team drills yesterday, so that's good. And Reed's locked in, which I was trying to tell people for months, but Justin Simmons. Yeah. So
nothing.
Thanks Atlanta.
Nothing from Justin Simmons for here in Philly. Yeah, so that hype train is over, Johnny Mac. We can officially put that one in the rear view as well. Coming up next on Birds 365 will be Jeff Kerr. And then later on in hour number 2, happy to have Chris Franklin. We'll have Chris Franklin on. So 2 great guests planned for you guys. Great week of content, as I pointed out, for those just checking in. We appreciate you guys being here. Great crowd already in here this morning. Smash that like button, everybody. Help us get as many likes as we can. And a programming reminder, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. So the next 3 days after today, we will be on a nighttime edition of Birds 365 as the Eagles will be at practice. So Johnny Mac will be down there at NovaCare Complex in the day, and then we'll nightcap edition the show tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. So 3 straight days, and then we'll get back to it on Friday morning, and then the preseason game on Saturday. So good stuff there. Let's get to our commercial break. We'll have Jeff Kerr coming up on the other side. Before I do that, I'm going to tell everybody about our newest, greatest sponsor here on Birds 365, BetUS. Happy to have BetUS a part of our platform. They're sponsoring this show, and they're sponsoring the National Football Show. So thank you to BetUS. Are you guys looking for a new sports book this football season? BetUS is the answer, and JAKIB Sports is proud to announce our football partnership for the upcoming season. Right now, receive a 125% sign-up bonus or a 200% sign-up bonus on crypto deposits up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. So incredible offer from them right now to get started. We're going to be doing the Saquon Barkley bets. We're going to be maybe doing some win totals. We're going to be playing all sorts of BetUS bets with you guys throughout the season. So good stuff from them. If it's good for former Birds quarterback Michael Vick, it's definitely good for JAKIB Sports. So go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. The link is also in the description. And a few other notes on BetUS. They have the fastest payouts in the industry. You get 24/7 personalized service. So if you need somebody to help you with your account, they have somebody on call for each account. So that's good stuff. And then get up to 10% back on your net losses twice a year. So a little bit of insurance for you if you come on the wrong side of the bet. So thank you to BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. The link is in the description. Let's get to our commercial break. Jeff Kerr on the other side joins us on Birds 365.
Michael Vick at betus.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.